is hosted by Hazel Atkins, who is the chair of the WYS Young Professionals Board, alongside a panel from the board itself. And now I'll hand it over to Hazel.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Catherine. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this WYS Young Professional Board webinar. As Catherine said, I'm the chair of the WYS Young Professionals Board for this year. I joined the board last year, and my background, my route in was through the WYS Awards. I found out about them then. I work at BMT as a business analyst, and my background is in maths. Not summary on me, but now I'll talk to you about the Young Professionals Board. It was established in 2014 because WYS identified that there was a lack of women in board positions. So there's a vicious circle, as I'm sure many graduates are aware of, graduate entry position with 5 years experience in this field, 20k starting salary kind of thing. So they wanted to break that for women in board positions. And then this year is the first year that we've also got men on the board, because we want to ensure that allies are also part of those board positions in the future, to give us some experience, but also we're used as a sounding board for the WYS campaign. As a group of diverse, relatable young professionals, we like to see ourselves as, we give them good feedback where it comes to, and challenge them as well when it comes to their strategy and some questions that they have that they want to ask young professionals. We work on initiatives to inspire, engage and advocate for the next generation of STEM, and we do that by having lots of projects as well. I will now introduce you to the board for 2020. Some of them are on the call now, sat in the background, and they'll appear in a minute. But this is us, the 12 of us this year, which is brilliant. We're all from different backgrounds, and when we talk about diversity, we're not just talking about ethnicity and gender, but we're also talking about STEM diversity from the different sectors, from science, technology, engineering and mathematics, from different employers in different sectors, different locations around the UK. So part of what we would usually do in the normal world was go to different offices throughout the year for our board meetings and find out about different industries as well, which can be really good fun. I've been to GSK and Rolls-Royce, which were really interesting. And then also our routes to our roles have been different. So mine was pretty academic. I went through university, I did my degree in mathematics, whereas there's others who've gone through apprenticeships as well. So yeah, this is the board, and then there's 4 of us here with us today. And then now I will talk about the projects that we're on, if you want to go to the next slide. So like I said, we try and fit everything under our inspire, engage and advocate. We have all those people you've just seen who are on the board, have different areas, different projects that they work on throughout the year. So we inspire by having social media pages to push out inspirational stories, to share what's going on, and try and encourage people into the world of STEM and to talk about diversity in STEM as well. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram and Twitter. So if you have any of those, please try and find us somewhere. Links are on our website. We also encourage our members to do speaking opportunities. And we also write a blog every month, at least one. So check those out. They can be really interesting. There will be one out soon on NASA. We were able to do some interviews with people who work at NASA, which is going to be a really interesting one. That should be out in the next week. Should be great. We also work to engage. So we've had a partnership with HarperCollins for quite a while, the publisher. They do a book series called Tara Bins, where a young girl goes into a dress-up box and dresses up as different professions. We've sourced some of the professionals that they have as case studies, as role models at the end of the books, so that young girls can see women in these roles and what their life is actually like, what their career is like, which is really nice, really good fun to widen our network that way. We also do a conference session. We would usually do a conference session, I should say, and we will be doing one next year. And this year we had a code breaking challenge for our competition, which was really successful. We had some really great feedback. It's still up on the WYS website, though the prizes have been and gone. It's still good fun. It's like an escape room on a piece of paper, is how I described it, but that was really, really entertaining. We also advocate by having a reverse mentoring pilot. So that's the first time this year. We've got senior members of our WYS member companies being mentored by people on the Young Professionals Board, past and present, which is really interesting to be able to widen our network again like that. We give feedback to WISE, like I mentioned, and we also have just set up an alumni network since being established since 2014. There's now enough of us to create one. So yeah, we've created that. We were hoping to have a social this year, but we will have one virtually and be able to build that up as well. So that's a bit about the Young Professionals Board, what we do, and me. I will now introduce you to the 4 people who are on the call now. Very sorry if our internets aren't the best. We were checking them beforehand, and Josiah unfortunately is not able to share his video, but you will be able to hear him and see his photo, so that's great. So these are the 4 here today, and I will start with Nadia. Please, can you introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, I'm Nadia Earl, and I've been on the board since 2018. I work for GSK and have done for about 9 years now. I love it, I'm having a great time, but this is my last year, so I'll be leaving the board in December, and I feel really sad about that because I've had a blast. And some of the projects I've been working on are really more our early engagements. So I've been involved with the HarperCollins project as my main one. And just a quick fun fact about me, I play the ukulele, which is quite fun. So I don't know if we've got any other ukulele players on the call, but I love it. And that's me.
Thank you very much, Nadia. I forgot my fun fact. I'm taller than 99.9%, 99.97% of British women. I'm 6'2", but that's always a little bit fun. And now, Josiah, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Hazel. So I'm Josiah, currently working with the Atomic Weapons Establishment down in Reading. Did a master's degree in physics at Liverpool, started a PhD, didn't enjoy it, so decided I'd go into the nuclear industry. So applied for the AW grad scheme, and I've been on that since October last year as a graduate physicist working within Radiation Detection Group. We've got a lot of sort of internal networks to do with diversity and inclusion. So that's how I found out about the WYPB. We basically just got an email sent around saying, oh, there's this really cool thing called WISE, and they're looking for young professionals to join their board. So I joined it, well, I applied, and then obviously got the position. So I'm new this year. So far, I've been in charge of the blog coordination, which is the content that goes on the main WISE website. Like Hazel said, we've got a really cool one with NASA coming up. I think that should be published next week, so keep an eye out for that. And I've also been responsible for co-creating the competition that Hazel mentioned as well, which was sort of, I think it was 6 to 14-year-olds, sort of UK-wide, and got a lot of interest and feedback on that as well. So that was really great. And my fun fact is I used to work in a pet shop in Sheffield, and Jessica Ennis used to be a regular customer. So I've served dog food to her, which was quite funny, my sort of run-in with celebrities. Anyway, that's me. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Josiah. Frida, please introduce yourself.
Yes, hi everybody. I'm Frida Nzaba. I work in Rolls-Royce as a manufacturing engineer. So I've been on the board since 2017. Feels like a long time ago. And I've worked in Rolls-Royce straight after my apprenticeship. So at least bringing that twist of apprenticeships rather than the traditional route onto the board. I found out about the board through Stephanie Newman, who used to also be on the board before I joined. So it was pretty good to have somebody to be able to give us advice. So I think that's the beauty of this webinar. So listen out to everything we say and make your decision, because we've never done this. This is the first one. And I've been involved in HarperCollins, so similar to Nadia, being able to support the Tara Binns publications. So go on their website and check out their case studies. You'll notice that we sourced the role models, so it was pretty good because you get to meet other people from different parts of STEM, other great amazing females. So yeah, that's a bit about myself. Oh, fun fact is I got married yesterday, so yeah, it just feels surreal. It hasn't hit yet, but yeah, that's a bit about myself.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Frida. And last but not least, Beth.
Hi everyone, so I am a junior software engineer working at Ultron UK. I'm based in Bath and I've been working there since September last year. I did a physics with astrophysics degree at Bath University, so I never left the Southwest, but then decided to have a bit of a change in career and move into software engineering, which means I'm now on a graduate apprenticeship scheme, so similar to Frida, taking a slightly different route into the STEM world. I joined the board back in January of this year, so still fairly new. I found out about the board because Altran, as a WISE member company, fully supports what WISE does, and so we get lots of internal emails and communications about all the things that WISE are doing. So it was just a big company-wide email that said the WISE Young Professionals Board were looking for a new person. So I applied, and here I am. Currently, I am the social media lead for the board, so I'm in charge of our Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn pages. So if you haven't started following those pages already, I'd recommend you do. We try and post really great content about our projects, about ourselves, but then also using our platform to lift up the voices of other women in STEM, to make sure that there are visible role models for people who might not think that there's anyone in STEM like them. My fun fact is, so I'm a scout and a scout leader, and last year I got to meet Bear Grylls at Windsor Castle, which is pretty cool.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Beth. So we've shared our fun facts about ourselves with you. Please feel free to do the same in the chat as well, and we'll see what interesting people we have watching today, as well, along with your questions. I see we've got a couple, and we'll come to those towards the end of this webinar. But we'll start out with, now you've met us all, and now you understand hopefully a bit more about the Young Professionals Board. There's a few questions that we've prepared that have been asked through our social media channels that we're going to post to each other, and then there'll be an open floor for us to answer any of the questions that have been put in through our chat. Catherine's monitoring that now, and we'll put it in so we can see what's going on. We will start with, why are you passionate about women in STEM? And this was actually the first question I asked when we had our only in-person meeting this year in February up in Leeds, and we ended up spending most of the board meeting talking about why we're passionate about women in STEM. But it was really interesting background to understand all of the different reasons why, and that sometimes it was parentage, sometimes it was something we'd seen or something we'd always been aware of. So I'm gonna pose this to Nadia first. Why are you passionate about women in STEM?
Okay, so I'll kick this off then. I think there are many reasons, but for me personally, it's around the potential that people have. So everyone has so much potential, and if I could be part of, a campaign that helps women feel confident to realise that full potential, then, I want to be part of it. I feel that it's unfair that people might have a lesser chance just because of their gender, or any other characteristic for that matter. But for me, it's just around the potential and really unlocking that, and there being fairness in the chances that we all have. So that's how I feel. It's a very personal view, but there are also many other supporting things as well.
Thank you, Nadia. Yeah, the strong sense of fairness, I think, runs through quite a few of us on the board. Frida, what did you think?
Yeah, I think for me is that diversity comes in so many different ways, especially in the workplace. So gender being one of them. So women tend to think differently, and I think this is bringing a new way of thinking into the workplace, definitely. And also I believe that women should go for the STEM roles because you're downplaying your strengths. You may think that, oh, I don't have the academic background, or I'm very bad at maths, etc. That's what I used to think. But for me, it's one of those things that if you're prepared to possibly get a tutor to make you pass those exams, every other skill that you have, even the soft skills like helping you communicate with others, is very, very important being an engineer. So I think, the majority of women tend to have better soft skills, as people say, and that's just talking from my experience. So I think don't downplay those. They're really needed in STEM. And also, I always think if you can empower more women to do STEM, it means that you're solving, problems could be solved much more faster across the whole world, because then you've got the other gender on board. So yeah, that's my personal view on that.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Frida. I'd quite like all of us to answer this one. So I'll go on to Beth as well.
Sure. So I think the gender imbalance in STEM is something I've been aware of from quite a young age. So growing up, not really having many female role models to look at in the careers I wanted to do. So when I was very young, I wanted to be an astronaut, and I wasn't aware of many female astronauts at the time. Though they do exist, it definitely wasn't as prevalent as it is today. And whilst, you know, the gender imbalance was something I was aware of, it wasn't an obstacle for me when pursuing my want to be in science and in engineering when I was older. But I know that that's not the case for everyone, and I know that a lot of young girls in particular are put off going into STEM and chasing their dreams because of the challenges they know they're going to face, and sort of like horror stories they may have heard, or the fact that they think there's no one else like me in those careers. And I know that there are so many women in STEM, and it's just part of the problem is that they're not talked about as much, or aren't given the platform to share what they do. And I think that that's something we could very easily change, which is why I wanted to join the board and sort of give a bigger platform to more women. Being a club leader, I work with children a lot, and I can see that they all think that certain stereotypes about people in STEM are still true. And I think that, you know, it's very important for me to change that. And I think that's also a mission of the board, is to advocate and inspire the next generation. And that's something that means a lot to me, which is why I wanted to join and why I'm passionate about the whole cause.
Very well slipped in our mission statement there as well. Thank you, Beth. That's very true. It's very nice to hear that we're all quite similar in our thinking about promoting women and giving us a platform. And I definitely think as part of our Inspire, we try to do that. We try to do that as much as we can, as reach as larger audience as we can. It'd be really interesting now hearing Josiah's opinion as the only man on this webinar, but only of 2 men on the board currently. What do you think about, and why are you passionate about women in STEM?
Yes, I certainly agree with all of those. I won't sort of repeat what I think when it sort of matched up with them, but I think my sort of light bulb moment, I guess you could call it, was reading the book Invisible Women, which is really good. I'd certainly recommend it if anyone here hasn't read it. But basically sort of showing the bias against women in the world from sort of all angles, you know, smartphone design, seatbelts, medical trials, literally so many things, simply due to lack of consideration for women in sort of every stage of the design. And it sort of angered me and amazed me that even today there's still so much disparity that really needs to be addressed sort of on all levels, which at the end of the day comes down from male-dominated workplaces. So I think that sort of really opened my eyes to how much is going on and how much needs to change as well. And that was sort of I really do want to be involved in this and sort of work towards that change. So that's sort of why I'm quite passionate about it and wanted to join the board.
I think it was brilliant that when we got, as part of our first board meeting, actually we shared and actually our second board meeting, because we'd started lockdown, we shared lots of things we were reading and watching on Netflix and things that were interesting. And I actually listened to, I'm dyslexic, so I struggle reading. So I listened to Invisible Women after you recommended it. Just so
it's so good.
I found it really interesting, particularly with snow ploughing in Sweden. Yeah, being prioritised for commuters in cars on their own. They'd plough the streets first and the cycle lanes next, and then the pavements afterwards. But they actually found that it would save them money because fewer people were falling over and hurting themselves because they weren't slipping up on pavements, because they were ploughing those first and clearing them first. But then that was prioritised to, you could argue, men. Because they're more likely to be the ones that are working in the city, but also making those decisions on laws. So that's why they prioritised it that way around. So it was interesting. I'll share mine as well, because I knew there was a problem when it came to women and equality of gender. I'm sure many of us have experienced or seen different examples of why it is. but I didn't think I was part of the problem or there was anything wrong with me. And then I watched a TED talk by Michael Kimmel called Equality is for Everyone, including men. And I thought, oh, a man talking about equality, that's interesting, I'll watch that one. And that made me think, oh, that's a bit of a red flag. And then I watched it and there was a riddle in it, and I'm sure many of you have heard it, with the father and his son in an accident, and the father dies and the son's taken to hospital, and then they say, the doctor turns around and says, I can't look after him, he's my son. And I thought, gay dads, I'm so progressive, go me. But it wasn't, the doctor was a woman, and I'd assumed that the doctor was male before and gay before I'd assumed that a doctor could be a woman or have even thought of it. So I realised I was part of the problem, and that I had biases, and I think so many of us do, if not all of us have biases. So I now try and catch myself, and by being part of this, I like to think I'm trying to make people more aware of the biases within them. But yeah, it was a really interesting board meeting, that one, the first one in February, where we got to meet lots of people at WISE in Leeds, but also find out about our backgrounds and what we do, and create those networks and friendships that we really find important on the board. Brilliant. Well, thank you, Catherine. Please could you move us to the next slide, and we'll get on to the next question. So we get asked this a fair bit by people who are interested in being part of the board, and with applications for 2021 going live today, we thought it was a question worth asking ourselves. How do you balance both work and the Young Professionals Board? I'll start with Beth on this one, if that's okay, Beth.
Yeah, sure. So I think my top tips for balancing sort of work and then any other commitments you might have are being organised and being honest. So being the social media lead, I'm quite lucky that I can use online tools to help schedule upcoming posts on our social media. So it's not as if I'm having to sit there every day and write posts out. I can just plan one afternoon where I do a month's worth of posts, and then I don't have to think about it again. So that means I can stay on top of my role within WISE, but then if work is getting busy, it doesn't, it means I don't fall behind, because work goes through busier periods and quieter periods, and obviously work does need to take priority sometimes, but I'm so passionate about being on the board, I don't ever want to let that slip. So that's how being organised helps me. But then also being honest, so if you're having a really busy day, or you're just not sure you're going to hit a deadline, or if you might need an extra pair of hands to help you schedule some posts or come up with some content ideas or anything like that, just asking helps so much, rather than hiding away and staying silent and letting things bubble up under the surface, which inevitably ends up badly. But if you just talk to people and ask for support, everyone on the board is amazing and more than happy to help. And likewise with my colleagues, they understand if I need some extra time because I need to focus on WISE. So yeah, that'd be my top tips: organised and honest.
Thank you very much, Beth. And you probably touched on one of the most important attributes that we're looking for in members of the Young Professionals Board is communication, and being able to communicate with one another, being able to be honest and comfortable with doing that, but also being part of the board. If you've got those roots that you want to be that we're very good at fostering that skill as well as part of it, and improving your confidence to be able to communicate, hopefully. Frida, did you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I think for me personally is setting a lot of reminders on my phone, because you carry your phone everywhere, and you know that you go to work and you might just let it slip, especially when you get home. You might think, oh, I don't have an action to do, let me watch TV and yada yada. Whereas if you set these actions in advance, so if I know we've got a board meeting 3 months away, even next year, I'll just set a quick reminder like a week before, and I'll see it ping, and then I'll start preparing for it and go through the actions. So then when you show up to the meetings, you don't have any, actions not actioned. And the other thing is having good WhatsApp communication and a good relationship with the team, because I know on different occasions you might let things slip, but having that good relationship with the rest of the board members is really good, because they know that your work ethics are still there but some things do slip. So it's just giving them a quick instant message and not just going AWOL. And the other thing is, what else? I had a few pointers. Yeah, is being able to have everything online as well. So that's helped me because I work shifts. So it just means that you don't have to book days to travel. So yeah, that's really helped balance both work and the YPB.
Thanks, Frida. And that might touch slightly on the COVID question that we're going to have later. Is we store everything on a Google Drive. That's how we share all of our documentation. We communicate through WhatsApp because we are all around the UK. That's another thing that we've got. We try and get people all over the UK to get views from different areas. So being set up like that meant that through COVID and through doing things virtually, it hasn't been as much of a struggle as it could have been if everything was on paper. Not that many people still have everything on paper, hopefully. But yeah, thank you very much, both of you. In the interest of time, we'll move on to our next question, which is based primarily on the change to the board this year. Mostly is that we now have men on the board. So this one's directed specifically at Josiah. What is it like being a man on the Young Professionals board?
Thanks, Hazel. So yeah, as Hazel mentioned, this is the first year men have been allowed on the board and to have positions. So me and Tarek are the first two to ever be accepted, which is quite exciting. I was a bit hesitant at first. I wasn't really sure if I'd feel welcome or if I sort of deserved to be there, if that makes sense. Which I think, looking back on it, was quite funny because I imagine that's probably how most women in physics jobs feel. It's sort of balanced towards men, which is a bit ironic. But yeah, it was sort of a silly view of me, I suppose, and one that went away very quickly, especially after joining and seeing how welcoming and helpful everyone is and sort of how amazing everyone on the board is. But yeah, I think there's quite a misconception, particularly among men as well, that trying to get more women into STEM is a women's issue, which it is. I mean, it's an issue that affects women, but it doesn't mean women should be the only ones tackling it. I think it's probably almost inherently men's fault were it such a disparity in the first place. So it's pretty outrageous to me to think we shouldn't be helping to sort of rectify that. Because it really does take sort of effort from everyone to produce an inclusive workspace, and men included, to achieve that and to do so in an informed way as well, not to speak for women or take up all the space, but, just use our voices, positions to try and call for action and get people on board, to raise awareness. And so that's what I'm hoping to do through being on the board. So yeah, I'm really pleased that it was decided to allow men onto the board, and sort of even more pleased that I was picked as a member. So yeah, hoping to keep making an impact and doing what I can do to move towards some equality within STEM.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Josiah. It's lovely to hear. We didn't hear that beforehand. So it's really nice to hear that we are welcoming. We try to be as much as possible, to be as inclusive as possible. And it is definitely, last year we saw a push and the board name changed from the Young Women's Board to the Young Professionals Board. And men would have been allowed on the board last year, accepted even. But not many applied. I don't think any applied, whereas for 2020 we pushed, we actively encouraged more men to apply, which is why we've been able to have some on the board this year. And it has been great. It's been important to include as many people in this discussion. There's a real push for male allies last year in our social media, and in the way that we were questioning whys as to who was attending the conference and how female heavy it was. I actually brought a couple of my male colleagues, including my MD, to the conference last year, and like to think I've changed some of their opinions and made them more allies than they already were already. So that's brilliant. Thank you very much. We'll move on to our last question, then we'll open up for to the floor. I'm conscious of time, so I just have one or two of us answer the next one, which I touched on a little bit earlier, was how has COVID impacted the board? And I'll go to Nadia for this one, if that's okay, Nadia.
That's fine. Thanks, Hazel. So I think COVID has had a big impact on many of our lives, as we know. But in terms of how the board has run and the progression that we've made, there hasn't been a lot of impact, to be honest. I think people have touched on it earlier. Everyone has a really sort of keenness to complete things and to work on the great projects that we work on. Personally, I miss seeing people face to face, and one of the good things about visiting the sites was that you did see lots of different industries, and I've got a lot from that, and I know other people have, just seeing how other industries work and other sites and places of work. But in terms of our team connection, I think in some ways it's even strengthened it, because we've had to make sure that we keep in contact more often through digital means, and as some people said earlier as well, we do all of our work on shared drives, so it's very easy to connect and see where we are with things. So yes, it has had a slight impact on the face-to-face stuff, but in terms of our project progression, we've definitely stayed strong through it.
Thank you very much, Nadia. We've had quite a few questions, and we're going to have to do a little bit of summary at the end. So I'm going to go straight to the questions that we've got come through online, answer those, and pose a few to other members on the board as well. I'll answer a couple of them quickly. So any parents represented on our board? So we tend to find that people, when they become parents, leave the board because of other commitments. So unfortunately, we don't have any parents on the board at the moment, and I'm not sure if we have in the past, but we definitely have them as part of our alumni network. So if ever we needed any feedback, then we can get in contact with them whenever we're talking about how about parents in that role. But yeah, it definitely wouldn't make any difference as to whether someone would be on the board or not. It's all up to them and how much time that they can commit. And there was also another question about full-time education. Last year we had someone who was doing a PhD. We have a lecturer on the board this year, but purely because of the amount of people who applied and where they came from last year and people leaving the board, we don't currently have anyone in full-time education. Part of the problem is that to be able to apply to the board, you have to be part of a WISE member company. So last year, the person that was on the board, Holly, she was partnered on her PhD with a company that was a WISE member, which is why she was able to be part of the board. We also have some other questions. So what's your company get out of being part of the board? I'm gonna ask Nadia, she's been on here quite long, I'm picking on you again, and then I'll also ask someone who's fairly new to the board as well and see what they think.
That's fine. Thanks, Hazel. So yes, I would say I've got so much out of being on the board, mainly really gaining confidence and having some allies and people to talk things through with. So I left university, went straight into GSK, and I didn't really know what was good. I had nothing to compare GSK to. And it was just a really good place to be able to understand how other companies worked, what other women's experiences were. And I think just gaining that confidence has enabled me to bring that confidence back into my own workplace and also have those same discussions and very open and honest discussions with other women in my workplace. And I try to also build the confidence of women. I mentor 4 women at the moment. And just this exposure and this networking that I've been able to do as part of the board has really helped me to do that and be confident in being a bit more of an advocate for women in the workplace. So many gains, and I think this will continue even after I leave the board. The connections I've made, the network that I have now has been amazing, and I know I can count on these people in the future as well. Thank you.
Add to a previous question, but also pose the what's it like?
I think you're talking to me, Hazel. You cut out for a bit there. But yeah, so quickly, just to add on to the question about parents on the board. So the second half of that question was about thinking about how parents can best support their children. So that's something that the main WISE board focuses on quite a lot. They have a platform called My Skills, My Life, which is an online platform that women and girls can use, and they take a quiz, and it tells them more about themselves and what kind of STEM careers they might be interested in, and points them to lots of different role models. And back at the start of lockdown, I think it was April, May time, we did a webinar where WISE Young Professionals board members took part, and we ran a session purely dedicated to parents and their daughters, where they could go through the platform together, and it would help parents understand all the careers that are out there in STEM if maybe they don't have a STEM background, but also inspire the girls and also maybe some of the mums out there to pursue STEM careers that maybe they hadn't thought of before, and also learn a bit more about themselves. So we do engage with projects to support parents as well, because we all know, I think from our experiences as well, that parents are such a key factor in getting a wider variety of people into STEM and encouraging children from a young age to follow their dreams. So that is something we do get involved in. Back onto the main question about what my company gets out of it. So obviously I report back to senior management at my company about what WISE are getting up to, about what projects that colleagues at my office can get involved in, about projects that we're doing. I help contribute to our quarterly newsletter in the office, and I get a special section all about the WISE board, so I can update everyone what we're doing. As I think Nadia said, it helps me build connections with more women in the workplace, set up working groups for women in STEM, and encourage all the other women in my office to not let anything get in their way and to speak up if they are having problems. So I do think it benefits my company quite a lot having me on the board, especially as a junior person as well. So I've only been in Altran for a year, but you know, being junior and being able to provide a different perspective to senior management that perhaps they haven't thought of, they found that very useful.
Thank you very much, Beth. We've already got 5 more minutes left of this webinar, so I'm very sorry. There's lots of questions still, and we'll go through them and answer them on our social media. So come follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram, and Beth will put them up and we'll find them there. So we'll answer them in slower time if that's okay, because I'll move on to the applications for 2021. If you go to the next slide, please, Catherine. Brilliant. So we're now open for applications for 2021. We'll have at least 2 spaces that we'll be filling for next year. To be able to apply, you'll need a recent CV. You'll need to have read the terms of reference, which is linked on that website. You'll need to be a member of a WISE member organisation. One of the questions was the board ever open up to people who weren't? And it wasn't. The whole part of the reason is so that it's an advantage of being a WISE member. The cheapest membership, I believe, is an online membership for £1,000. So if you're really interested, you might be able to persuade your company to become a member and get the other benefits that you also get as being part of a WISE member company. And also we ask for people to not be under 30 before the 1st of January. So that's so that we can stay a young professionals board. That's part of the point of us being established, is that we're new to the industry, and we have a fresher and a different perspective to those that will be on the main board for WISE. There are all sorts of other organisations with boards at different levels, so that's why they've chosen to do the young professionals under 30 primarily. And then what we're looking for people on the board, a lot of it's been pointed out throughout this, and if you do get through to interview and you are putting in an application beforehand, then these are the points you need to look out for. So we're looking for people with good communication skills, who are concise, who are able to get to the point quite quickly. We would like your CV to be 2 pages or less, please. We like people to be passionate, to be really interested, to have a reason why they're part of or want to further women in STEM, to be able to commit, to have the time to do it. It's not It's not lots of time, but we ask in the terms of reference that you commit 12 days, 12 working days from your company to be able to commit to the Young Professionals Board. That includes the events and the board meetings that we would have in person and the board meetings that we are now having virtually, which is actually taking slightly less time, but the projects as well, and being able to work on those as board members. A lot of us put in some of our personal time as well, because we are passionate, because we want to further it. And I do find, if I was answering the question about juggling work and life, is sometimes work is highly ramped up for deadlines at the same time that I need to do a lot for the Young Professionals Board. So I do find myself on a Sunday with a gin in hand, watching TV in the background while doing wise work on my laptop. But that's fine. I love it. So that's part of the reason why I do it. But also, people we want to look for on the board are people who are comfortable challenging constructively ourselves, questioning WISE and the Young Professionals Board, how we run, what we do. We're always looking to improve ourselves and WISE and the campaign to try and further women in STEM in general. I hope that answers most questions when it comes to the applications. You can find it on the WISE campaign website. This webinar will be loaded afterwards, so later today it'll be on the WISE website for people to watch. If you've got other people in your companies who will be interested in applying or just wonder what we're up to, then you're very welcome to listen to it retrospectively. Thank you very much all for attending, and I think Catherine has a few words to say to sign us out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hazel, and thank you to Beth, Josiah, Frida and Nadia for participating on the panel as well. It's been wonderful to hear everything you've had to say and to see your passions come through. As Hazel said, we're going to have to stop here, but thank you again for your time and to everyone who participated and answered questions. The session has been recorded and we'll save it in the WISE member resource area, and a link to it will be sent in a follow-up email. Upon closing this webinar, you will have the opportunity to provide us with any feedback, which we'd really appreciate. So thank you again for all joining today, and we'll finish the webinar now. Bye.